Hey guys, this is the second episode of a noob's guide to Pokemon battling, and in this video I'll be covering items. Items are something your Pokemon can hold, and it will just help their abilities to fight. It often won't make a humongous difference to the fight. It will potentially change something that happens in the fight, but they're kind of like abilities, except they're universal, because every Pokemon gets the ability to hold these, even though some of them might not have an advantage for some of them because, well, it'd just be kind of stupid. For instance, a lot of them, they wouldn't want to be burned, because it would just reduce their abilities to fight, and make them take damage every turn. It wouldn't be very helpful. However, something else, such as the King's Rock, everything can hold that, and it will help them quite a lot. And so, I'm going to go through a few popular items, which is this list, and then a few others that I found that I use quite a lot, or other people use quite a lot. So first, the Assault Vest. It only works on some Pokemon, because some Pokemon will be used for attacking, known as a sweeper. Some of them might be a status inflictor, known as a support. It's really dependent on the Pokemon. But an Assault Vest means if I were to use it on this Pokemon, okay, I've got it set up, so it's got Brave Bird, an attacking move, but it's got Recoil, Double Edge, the same, except Brown being Flying type, it's normal type, Quick Attack, because it usually goes first, unless something else beats it, and then Roost, which heals HP, and it's a status move. These moves cannot be used when you have an Assault Vest. And then next one is Choice Band. Well, actually, I'll go through the choice items, which boosts your attacking stats, and at the same time as boosting your attacking stats, they also, I'm sorry for the background noise, but they also mean you can only use the first move you use. So you could only use Brave Bird, or only use Double Edge, or only use Quick Attack, which isn't always the most helpful. However, they either boost attacking ones or speed, which means you'll probably go first if you've got that. Eviolite only works on Pokemon that can evolve, so you have to know what ones can evolve. However, it can be very useful, and it means that your defense and special defense have an extra 50%, which is really helpful. Focus Sash means if you're on all your HP, 100% HP, you've not taken any damage, and you get hit and it would take you out, you'll be left with 1 HP. It's very similar to an ability called Sturdy, which does the same thing, but it can be used over and over again, so long as you get back to full health. Whereas this one will only be used once, even if you go back up to full health. And Sturdy also protects against moves called one-hit KO moves, which are usually not allowed on Pokemon Showdown, and they have really low accuracy, and they also just always one-hit KO. They're not that fun to be against, because they're just not fun, because you can't beat them, no matter what. Leftovers is just something that heals you a 16th of your health at the end of the turn. Kind of helpful, I guess. Life Orb, it means that you do 1.3 times damage, but you lose a 10th of your health after you attack. It's usually very helpful. It might not sound as good as it actually is. I pretty much will just default to using that on a sweeper, unless I have something else that must be done for it. However, that's only if I have to. Then Lumberry, it's if they've got a status condition, which I will go over in the next video. It will cure them from it. Also, if they're confused, which is slightly different, but again, I will go over those. Mental Herb is similar. It's stuff that I'll go over next video. Power Herb, it means some moves take 2 turns to execute, and except from one called Skydrop, it will always complete them in 1 turn, which can be very helpful. Because all the moves that are like that have very high power, so they're quite helpful. The Rocky Helmet means if someone hits you with what is always a physical attack, and it has to be one that makes contact, because there are some that don't make contact, but are physical, then they just lose a 6th of their HP. Kind of helpful. it can be combined with a move called Assurance on slow Pokemon to actually make it really, really, really powerful. Citrus Berry, it means once you're below half HP, you restore a quarter of it, but you can only use it once. The Air Balloon makes you immune to ground type attacks. It can be helpful on electric type Pokemon and some other ones. I wouldn't recommend using these things like Black Belt and Black Glasses and things like that increase the power of one type of attacks. Always just use a Life Orb instead. It's so much more powerful. Black Sludge means that if you're using a poison type, it's just basically leftovers, but you're actually immune to having it stolen. Because if someone steals it, then they lose 1/8 of their HP if they're not a poison type, so it's helpful. The Bright Powder is quite helpful as well. It decreases the accuracy of attacks against you to, at the most, 90%. Some moves, however, do bypass this and will still hit anyway. These plates, any of these plates, don't use them on any Pokemon that isn't a Pokemon called Arceus, because if you use it on Arceus, it will change its type, which can be very helpful. This full incense can be very helpful, but only if you know what to do with it, because it means you move last in something known as priority bracket. It's how this move says it usually goes first. It has +1 priority. Everything else has 0 priority. And there's not very much of a way to sort of change that. However, it is quite a helpful thing to have, even though Quick Attack is a really weak attack, and I have Double Edge, which does 3 times more damage. It is still helpful, because it always goes first. Then, I'm just looking through these. Lagging Tail is the same as thing I just went over about priority. These things like Luminous Moss and other moves like, not moves, items like that are very helpful, because it means if you're hit by maybe your one weakness, then it boosts your stats, which is very helpful. The Metronome is actually very helpful, because it's what allows for the highest damage possible, because it means after you've used a move multiple times in a row, it will do extra damage. The gems have extra power on their first move of that type. The red card is interesting. It means if you survive an attack, the person who hit you is forced to switch. And they don't get to choose who they switch, so it's quite helpful. Scope Lens and Razor Claw, which is the exact same thing, basically. They just raise your chance for a critical hit. They're actually used in one of my tactics that I use quite a lot, which is quite helpful, as in they actually make the tactic. The Starfberry, I've never seen it used, but it can be quite helpful if you go to a quarter of max HP. It's very similar to the ability Moody, which raises one of your stats by 2 at the end of a turn, and one of them by 1. And so then, that's what happens. This one I see quite a lot, the weakness policy. It means if you're hit by a super effective attack, it raises your attack and special attack by 2 stages, which is really helpful. And then, the zoom lens is actually quite helpful, but the wide lens is potentially slightly more helpful, because the zoom lens only works if you move after them, but the wide lens boosts your accuracy regardless. They both boost accuracy, just by more for the zoom lens. These are all items that are very specific to certain Pokemon. The ones that end in ites are allowing things to Mega Evolve, which I will go through. Then there's things like Adamant Orb, Blue Orb, and things which boost certain Pokemon. The Deep Sea Tooth, if you're using a Clamperl, no idea why you'd do that. Special attack's doubled. Things like that. Lucky Punch, your critical hit ratio's boosted if you're using a Chansey. It's just things like that. And then what happens is, if you go through this, you realise that there's not that much helpful. And then there's these things which are just terrible. Never use them. Except from the Destiny Knot, which is slightly ridiculous, but it can be helpful. Or the Float Stone. or the iron ball actually, they can be helpful. Because the float stone means that moves like grass knot, which do damage based on weight, do less damage. And the iron ball you can use with the move fling to do increased damage. Ring target, again, you can use it with fling, and it'll mean even immunities still work. However, for this Pokemon, for instance, I'll just show you what I would do. I would use a life orb. Simple as that. Items aren't that complicated. But anyway, that's the end of the video, guys, so see you next time. Next time I'll be going over status inflictions, and also the differences between volatile and non-volatile status inflictions, and also what each of them means and how they can be exploited, and things such as that. So see you next time.